Hello, everyone. Welcome into a Saturday broadcast here at the 6th of September, 2025. It's a rare Saturday broadcast for me because I want to update you with what I discovered on the QNAP NAS with regards to the heat-related issues we're trying to resolve, and stumbled onto a couple of things that I couldn't wait to share with you. Not only that, literally couldn't wait, because I have to get this thing moving along. The customer is waiting, and I don't want them to have to wait, for my next show before they can, get the issue resolved. So trying to kind of combine two things at the same time here, helping a customer with something I'm quite unfamiliar with, and trying to figure out how it's different from what I am familiar with. And this is the process of learning that I want to share with you. There's a lot of people, particularly on the internet, not so much in real life, but particularly on the internet, that expect all content creators to be experts on what they're talking about. And the shame of it is those people who make the claims that, oh, this person's not an expert, actually don't make any content themselves, and often listen to other content creators giving some of the worst advice I've ever heard. But they think those people know what they're talking about because they're really confident. It all sounds good. So the challenge that I face, unfortunately, when dealing with the general public is there are some people who don't understand the point of the videos that I make and how they're different from pretty much anybody else's videos, and that we show the learning process. That is typically considered embarrassing by most people, and they wouldn't want to show them learning. So somebody might show you they're playing the piano, but they don't show you the first time they played piano. It's almost like it's a hidden, shameful secret, when in fact it's something to be boasted upon, and I find it inspirational. And in much the same way, if you learned how to drive a stick shift car, you probably didn't figure it out the first few times, and even then, probably quite a bit rough for the first few weeks. And over time, and you keep practicing, you get better. And for some reason, in the culture today, we try and hide that as much as possible, and if you show it, then you're an idiot. Well, that's all you need to know about those people. All right, so they're among us. Thankfully, we have a wonderful community here that doesn't do that. It's only people from outside of the community that they can't even bother to even understand the community they're in. That's how dense they are. And so bear in mind that as I show you this content in the way that I show it to you, the consequences for me are random morons who don't understand the point of the video condemning me for their lack of fundamental misunderstanding of what was conveyed. I don't know what I can do about it, but just let you know that goes on constantly from people I've never seen before, and hopefully will never see again, because they're so disappointed at how I could possibly make a video showing mistakes. They'll never watch another video of mine again, which is, listen, that's a blessing as far as I'm concerned. Please don't. If you're that kind of person, these videos aren't for you. But in the meantime, we continue to march forward with the same agenda, with the same concepts, and just know there's a lot of people who are very vocal. It's almost like the more they don't get it, the more vocal they are. It's sort of like one thing leads to the other. I don't understand this, and I want to make sure everybody in the world knows. Now, to me, that's what would be shameful and embarrassing. So we couldn't be on more opposite sides of a fence. But be that as it may, I stumbled into something last night as I was copying a bunch of files over to the QNAP. This thing's running nice and cool now. Like, it's running anywhere from 46 to 54 degrees Celsius, well below our 70 degrees Celsius ceiling that I'm worried about. But when we were setting it up, we did exceed that. We got to like 74 on one of the drives. Now, the drives I put in here, I've had for a while. I think drive number 1 came out of the original streamer. So it's got a lot of power on hours, even though it doesn't have a lot of data written to it. There's a lot of hours on it, but still maybe 5% of its total projected life. And I thought, well, we'll just use that. And I had another one that was laying around, same make and model, put that in there. And then I had 3 brand new ones out of the box and put those in there. So after we order our little heat sinks from QNAP, and I realized once I saw them in real life what they were, then I realized, okay, these were $10 for a pack of 5, and they weren't even sticking very well, and it was $15 to ship. Well, on Amazon, when I was looking before I ordered these, again, I had no point of reference. So when I look over at Amazon, which I will bring the link up for you right now, and this link is in the video notes, I had seen these, but I thought, well, these are a bit smaller, so I'm not quite sure if they're going to work or not. But now that I've seen these in person, I feel very confident that this option from Amazon here is less than a third of the price, arrives in one day, and gives me twice as many heat sinks. That's a pretty significant difference, isn't it? Let's see if I can show you the screen. There they are. So look at here. So these are 15 millimeters, the ones I ordered from QNAP. The ones on Amazon are 14 millimeters. I don't think a millimeter along each side is going to make any difference. And instead of 5 pieces, we get 10 pieces. So if should any don't stick, I've got extras. And they're $6.99 instead of $10. And it's free shipping instead of $15 shipping. And I'll have it the next day instead of in 3 business days. So lessons learned. Now, as for the height, it's 6 millimeters. We'll take these out of the package and let's just see how tall they are. I think we have plenty of room for height here. And I just want to compare them side by side during today's live video because the package just arrived about an hour ago, right in time for showtime. See what we got. Let's go to camera 2. So this envelope was in an envelope, which contains another bag. Let's see how these compare. 1 millimeter shouldn't be making that big of a difference. And then height-wise, let's see how they compare. I got to get my glasses because I can't tell if they're exactly the same. Yeah, you know what? This one may be a millimeter longer, and height-wise, the ones from Amazon are about a millimeter taller. So the ones from QNAP are a millimeter longer on each edge. The ones from Amazon are a millimeter shorter on each edge. And the ones from Amazon are about a millimeter taller than the ones from QNAP. Boy, they sure do look identical. Let's come back over here to camera 1. These are the ones from Amazon and the ones from QNAP. So yeah, the fins are a little more tightly spaced than the ones on Amazon. I see 4 fins, and on the QNAP, I see 6 fins. 7 fins. So this is more densely packed with fins. I don't know how big of a difference that'll make. Anything to dissipate the heat. That's all I care about. So I thought, let's give them a shot. And the reason is I know this one over here, and I had done also a little research because I had seen a review on this QNAP, and the content creator that did that review said you're not supposed to hot swap these, but everything in the QNAP material says they are hot swappable, which makes sense. So I think that content creator either had a prototype or was misinformed, or maybe there's fine print in the QNAP documentation I haven't seen. But we were unable to put a heatsink on here because at the $25 that we ended up paying for shipping and plus the $10 for the heatsinks, one doesn't stick. And for the cost to return, it didn't make any sense. And I thought, well, I don't really think it matters that much so long as we get something on there. And if I peel this one off, let's see. These are always removable, so no worries about, any sort of damage that could occur. These aren't going to hurt anything. I just want to make sure that when I put it on, that 1 millimeter height difference isn't going to prevent us. Well, that's a lot better adhesive than what QNAP sent us. I want to make sure that we can still slide this in. Oh. You know what? It is rubbing. It is just right at the tip. That's interesting. I can't help but wonder if making contact with the top is extending the heatsink, since the top is metal, and that the heatsink might work better, or will the heatsink work worse because there's no airflow going over it? Just that 1 millimeter made a difference. So I'm going to leave it in here for now. I'm not sure. I mean, as long as these other ones, let me just check and make sure these haven't fallen off. So that one's on good. Yeah, that one's on good. Just want to make sure that adhesive is finally cured. Yep, everything feels pretty good. This goes in without any rubbing, so there's that 1 millimeter. It might be 2 millimeters. It's making all the difference. You've got to be very careful with what you select here. There goes my power brick. Yeah, these are on nice and tight now. I was concerned when I put them on because they still had quite a bit of play in them, but that's normal for any adhesive to need a minute to, to cure. And then we've got all these extras, which I can always use for other things other than this. This is just a very unique design. Now, one of the things I realized as I was copying files with the heatsink off of drive 5 is drive 5 was running cooler than pretty much all the other drives that have heatsinks. And I'm thinking, what was that all about, you know? So I did a little research, and let me show you what I found, because I think you'll be as shocked as I am. And there's a great learning lesson in this for you, for us all. In the meantime, before I do that, let me say hello to everybody hanging out with us in the chat. A shout out to our friend Buster with that Amazon gift card as a replacement for Super Chat. Since Super Chats take 30%, YouTube takes 30% and makes us wait over a month to get that money. Amazon gift cards there's no cost to them. Amazon doesn't take a commission, and there's no delay. As soon as you send it, within minutes we get it. So I really appreciate the thoughtfulness and certainly the generosity. So a shout out to our friend Buster out there in Edinburgh, Scotland. David Graham joins us and says hello. There's Tony Aindow saying hello, along with Mark Gaines, Dennis Hay, Ben Laird also joins us from Scotland. Andy W6AD says hello. Buster says, that's our friend Peter Laycock, 61 degrees Fahrenheit in Edinburgh today, or 16.1 degrees Celsius. Warming up over there. What do you got over there that you're struggling with? Flour? You got a
unbelievable flour.
What is that, 10 pounds?
It's 20 pounds.
20 pounds and you can carry it?
Barely. That's a quarter.
Well, that's all going to be in your belly in about a week.
Very funny.
You can make a sandbox out of that.
Yeah, but now I can make my pasta. Oh.
You're going to make keto-friendly, low-carb pasta?
Yes, I am. Oh, holy crap.
She's working for her food today.
Yeah.
Wow. All right. So, well, I'll tell you, something else that's off topic. I go through this Gatorade, right? And lately the prices on this Gatorade have been going up and up. I get these 12 packs of these 12-ounce bottles. And they were like $6.99, then they went to $7.99, then they went to $8.99. And then I seen them for $9.99. And if I go to Walmart, they're usually the cheapest at around $7.99. If I go to Safeway or Fry's, which is Kroger, they're usually about $8 to $11. Yeah, like $9.99, somewhere in there. And so I won't buy many of them. I'll just, if I need one, I'll get one that's 12 bottles. Anyway, and I've done this before, where I went on Amazon and found I could buy it cheaper on Amazon, and I don't have to get in the car, drive to the grocery store, find a parking spot, find a cart, get people, stopping in front of me, moving all around people, waiting in line to pay for it. taking it back out to the car, loading them one by one into the car, taking the car back home, unloading the car. I just looked on Amazon last night, $6.50 for what I've been paying $10 a piece for. So if Amazon can sell these at $6.50 with free shipping, in other words, I click the mouse and they're here at the door, like the next day. Why am I spending all this time and effort going and getting them and spending more money to do it? Not to mention the cost of time and gas. And then Amazon says, you can set up a subscription on this and we'll deliver them to your door on a regular basis at like a 20% discount. So you can save even more money. Now, I don't feel so good for the delivery driver, but I mean, they are a delivery driver. That's what they signed up to do. But nonetheless, how is it possible that every local grocery store that I've been to in Phoenix is $3 more than Amazon? Who's gouging here? They're saying the inflation is making the products more expensive. The product is just the same price. It's the grocery stores that are raising the price. And if they're raising the price by $3 per item, and on average I'm buying 50 items, I may not be buying 50 items, maybe I'm buying 30 items, that is an additional $90 that it's adding potentially to the cost of my groceries. Well, no wonder why groceries are getting expensive. You can't mark up an individual item that much at a grocery store where people are filling up carts. This is a wake-up call. I feel like I need to go take my cell phone and take pictures of the price of the Gatorade at Walmart, at Safeway, at Fry's, and then show the screenshot at Amazon. It's extremely different. And then send that to like one of the news investigators and go, what's going on here? Because this doesn't make any sense. How can I have this delivered right to my door? I should be paying extra for that service. And then have it so much cheaper than going and getting it myself by nearly 50%. Well, 40%. Anyway, that's how I'll be getting it from now on. Kicking myself. Because I did have Gatorade delivered once before, and it was cheaper. And then I just kind of forgot. Not just at the store, I'll pick it up while I'm there. And then as I'm looking at the price, I'm like, whoa, this got expensive. And I'm like, well, I'll just get one, and I'll go to Walmart. Walmart has universally the cheapest prices. And yet, even Walmart is overpriced by $1.50 compared to Amazon. And sometimes Walmart doesn't even have it in stock. The shelf is bare. Again, another problem I don't worry about with Amazon. Anyway, just had to share that with you because if it helps me, I think it might help you too. It's worth looking. Hello to Mark Gaines. Of course, Mara's hanging out with us here in the chat. I also see Dustin Fuller saying hello. And Larry G joins us along with Doman 2000 and Dave Leonard. Albert Lindos with 3777. That's very generous. He says, hey, chat, Carey and Mara, catching up in my late fees. We hope you're doing well. We haven't seen you in a while. Good to see you. Good to see you back. Hope you're doing well. Martin Postema says hello. There's a $5 super chat from our friend Rick Lakes joining us from Minnesota. That's how they talk over there, right? Minnesota. Wild Soul says hello, as does our friend Luke Greenia out in Vermont. I also see Jack Kugelmus says hello. Mark Gaines says hello to live Windows training with Doug Betts. Is he in there? Is our friend Doug Betts in there? He was making a show. I don't know, is he finished with his show today? It's a good show, too. Dan Nelson says hello. John Williams joining us. And Jamal says hello. Tony wants to know, is it the tariffs you pay over there that's making things more expensive? Well, tariffs would be for items coming in from foreign countries. Gatorade is made here in America. In fact, Gatorade was created for the Florida Gators college football team as a electrolyte replacement that the coach requested, and it just sort of became a phenomenon. And so when they created it for the Florida Gators, they thought, well, what are we going to call it? And so they called it Gatorade. But any sort of typical food is and drink is mostly domestic, except for, obviously, we have imported wines and cheeses and specialty foods, but overall, the regular daily staples, those are just made here in the United States. There's tariffs would be things coming in from other countries. We're not importing eggs. We have enough. We're not importing necessarily meat or beef, I should say. Certainly Italian prosciutto and things like that could be imported in. And for the most part, the vast majority of groceries at a regular grocery store are domestically made. Sometimes some of the produce will come in from neighboring countries, Mexico and Chile, for certain things. But regardless, pineapples are all from probably Hawaii or Costa Rica. Not sure. I'd be thinking about bananas, tropical fruits. I don't know. I'm not an expert there, but no, it's nothing to do with the tariffs, really. Tariffs would apply mostly to goods. A lot of furniture or computers, electronics, appliances, all that stuff's made somewhere else. Cars. They don't make that much, if at all, here in the United States anymore. They used to. So those will have the tariffs, and those will be likely quite a bit more money. Depending on how much it was, right? The more expensive it was before the tariff, the more expensive it becomes after the tariff. I think that's pretty obvious. Lagrinia says, I think Gatorade's distributed by Pepsi. Yeah, very well could be. Tony says our food prices are very expensive in England, and our energy price will go up again at the end of October. But we just got to make more money. Andrew Chatsworth says hello. John Williams says, wow, that's a great price on Gatorade. Yeah, imagine my shock. I'm over here. So I'm just curious, because I'm like, I better go to the store tomorrow. That's what I'm thinking to myself late last night. This is what happens when it gets late and my mind wanders. And I say, I remember getting Gatorade before and it was cheaper. I wonder if it's still cheaper. And I'm looking for lemon lime. And I'm looking for the 12-pack. I like the size of the bottle. And you'll see here it says $7.14. That's still about $1 cheaper. But I think as an Amazon Prime, I get it for $6.49, or maybe it had a discount that day. Oh no, these aren't the right ones. These are 20-ounce bottles. Wrong bottles. Hold on. Where's the 12-pack? Here, there it is. $6.48. That's exactly what I ordered. And they have it in all the different flavors. I want the lemon lime. I could pick a maximum of 5. They wouldn't let me pick more than 5, and that's fine. That's all I need for now. And it says here, free shipping tomorrow. And you can set it on a subscription, and that brings the price down another 30 cents to $6.16. That's about 50 cents per bottle. That is a really good price, because I'm paying nearly $1 per bottle. That's almost 50% off, and that's free delivery. And these are heavy. I feel bad for the driver that's got to deliver them. Nonetheless, not the bottles themselves, but the 12-packs, they're pretty heavy and they're a bit unwieldy. They take up a lot of space in a grocery cart, for example. But yeah, what a deal. Ways I can help save you money. I try to be as transparent as possible, not just with computers, but just everyday living. More people should be aware of this. The price is extreme. If the difference between Amazon and Walmart was 50 cents, so I'm spending $2.50 more on 5 of them. I usually don't buy more than 4 or 5 at a time. Wait till I run out a couple weeks and then go buy 4 or 5 more. This helps, me not spending a lot of money on stuff that has to get stored in the garage that's not temperature controlled, and probably destroys the Makes it expire sooner, I would guess. It's not good for you. I don't have anywhere to store it other than right here. And week after week and month after month, you can imagine how much that adds up to. So, you know, the better answer is to stop drinking it. That'll save me even more money. But I'm just kicking myself. I'm like, I should have been doing this all year. I don't know what I was thinking. I guess I wasn't convinced the price was going to stay there. I thought it would come back down. It's only gone up. It has not come down. And so what am I going to do? I pay the price. You know, I go get it. Whatever. It's $1. Who cares? But then dollar after dollar after dollar, just on 5 of these, I probably saved $10. It's almost like buy 5, get 2 free. It's pretty extreme. Anyway, I just had to share that with you. So getting back to the QNAP, let me plug it in. I started copying files. Remember, we have about 6 terabytes of space here. So I copied about 4.5 terabytes. Said it was going to take about 12 hours. Now, I'm doing that from a wireless laptop that's connecting basically a 2.5 gig. And I wasn't getting 2.5 gig speeds because I'm copying a lot of smaller files in some of the directories. And that's going to slow you down quite a bit. So I thought, well, I don't care how long it takes, just let it run. So after I let it run for about 90 minutes, I realized nothing's going to happen. I mean, the temperatures were solid for an hour and a half with nothing. So the only reason I think the temperatures rose initially is because of the initial setup and the resources required to create the ZFS file system and the RAID array. Once that's done, it didn't hurt anything. I was just concerned, how frequently is that going to happen? So far as I can tell, just during setup. But as I'm watching the temperatures of each individual drive, I'm noticing some pretty extreme temperature differences. Drive 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. A couple of them are running about 6 to 10 degrees Celsius cooler or hotter, depending on which way you want to look at it, than the others. But they're all the same drive. They're all Samsung 970 EVO Plus drives. They're the same drive. Why would one run hotter than another? Does anybody have any ideas? You want to put that in the chat and see if you're right? What's the first thing you want to look for? There's a delay between when I talk and when you hear me, so I'm waiting for the, well, first of all, waiting for the QNAP to boot, but I'm also waiting to see if there's any suggestions, some guesses coming in from our live chat room here. Because believe me, it surprised me. I went looking for one thing and found something else. I'm waiting for one more beep. That should tell us that it's ready. Solid connections. Oh yeah, solid connection. No issues with connections with NVMe drives. They lock in, so that's not even a doubt. Maybe where it's installed within the case, thinks Lugrinia. Perhaps airflow on one side versus the other. Perhaps. Are there any drives sitting on top of the CPU or motherboard? Don't know, Terrell. I don't open this. I don't know where the CPU is in it. No idea. Parity drive? No, all 5 drives are equal in a RAID 5. So there's no spare or parity. There's no unique parity. Each drive has parity of the other 4 equally. That way any of the 5 can die. Doesn't matter which one it is. And the other 4 can pick up. That's the genius of RAID 5. Rude Rabbit wants to guess drive position in the case. Drive position in the case may play a role, but I'm thinking of something that we can say, okay, assuming There's nothing we can do about the drive position. We have to use all 5 positions regardless. If all the drives are Samsung 970 EVO Pluses, how come some of them are running hotter than others? How come drive 5, without the heatsink on it, was cooler than the first 4? Remember, the drives we had a couple drives running over 70 degrees during the setup. I don't remember which drive numbers they were. I'd have to go back to the video and look. But drive 5, without the heatsink because it wouldn't stick, was running cooler than all the others. How does that make any sense to anybody? So I heard this beep. That means I can log into it now. Let me do that. Let's go back over to this browser. And we're going to go over to our window capture again. And Mara and her fun with the QNAP wallpaper. Okay, here's what I want to show you. We go to storage, and by the way, I'm starting to move along a lot faster in this. There's certain areas I need to go into regularly on a Synology that are different on the QNAP. And while I've done this on QNAP before, I don't do it often. Much like if you don't play the piano very often, you're not going to be very good at playing the piano. But since I've been into this quite a bit in the last few days, you'll find I'm much better at navigating my way around. I would expect you to exhibit the exact same comfort level and confidence level. And now, if we look at the drives right now, just what temperatures are we running? Somewhere in here it tells us 40 degrees here. Oh, here's the other thing I figured out. I can open up the resource monitor and I can just, let's see if we close this. We go back to that resource monitor, which Synology also has an icon in the top right for resource monitor. And then click on the drives. Whoops. Hold up. Oh, fans just kicked on. Resource monitor. Here we go. See, CPU, even when copying the file, CPU speed was pretty low. RAM's at 8%. Disk health, somewhere in here. I clicked there. Now I can take a look at all the temps. These are fantastic temps. I don't know why this fan just kicked on. Oh, wait a minute. What's this? This is suddenly saying those drives are hot for some reason. That's new. Let's see what it says. 67. Now, this was the coolest drive last night during testing. It stayed in the 40s. This is 68. It must be that I have to go live. Otherwise, now drive 1 is the coolest. Drive 2 at 51. Drive 3 at 50. Drive 4 has dropped to 54. And drive 5 is dropped to 53. So those fans are doing their job. I don't know why they would have suddenly heated up. Now, here's what I'm thinking. Why such an extreme difference in the temperatures? So I start looking at the firmware version on these drives. Firmware can be a very important fix for well, just errors in development, quite frankly, from the manufacturers. And while I've never seen a firmware update on a Feijing, that doesn't mean it wouldn't benefit from one. But Samsung, with the Samsung Magician software, should keep me relatively up to date. And what I wanted to show you, if we go to drive 1 and we look at the specs, we can see the power on hours is 581 total days. In other words, 24 hours makes a day. So the number of hours that drive 1 has had on it totals the equivalent of 581 days at 24 hours a day, which it wasn't used that way, but that's the streaming, the old NVMe drive from the old streamer back at Studio B. Still plenty of life on it, all right? Then we look at drive 2. That's got the equivalent of 85 days of use on it. But drives 3, 4, and 5 I took brand new out of the box here on camera. So that's interesting. So if we go over here to smart information, no, I'm sorry, SSD features. Is that it? Look at the firmware vision here. 4B2Q. 4B2 What's the firmware version on drive 4? 4B2, drive 3, 2B2, drive 2, 2B2, drive 1, 2B2. So which one's newer? So I open up Copilot. Wow, that fan is really, I couldn't get that fan to run this all last night. This would not do it. So I'm glad it's doing it now. So we'll open up Copilot and we'll ask Copilot. Let me grab the Copilot screen. Let's go to Properties and change our capture to Copilot. What is the latest update, the latest firmware for a Samsung 970 EVO Plus? No, that's not the same information. Maybe I used Gemini. What is the latest firmware version? Okay, so there's 2B2, 3B2, which was an intermediate. I've never seen that. And then 4B2. So I'm still not getting what I got last night. Let's try, the fan is finally starting to settle in. Let's try going back over to, let's see, properties, we'll change this to Chrome. Let's just open Google. What is the latest firmware for Samsung 970 EVO Plus? Yeah, this must have been what I did. This is exactly what I read. This is what I was trying to find. The latest firmware for the Samsung 970 EVO Plus is 4B2Q EXM7, but there are two distinct versions of that drive. The 970 EVO Plus models with the newer LPIS controller use the 4B2 firmware, while older models with the Phoenix controller have the 2B2 firmware. Okay, so the lesson here is, even though they're exactly called Samsung 970 EVO Plus, there's not revision 1, there's not revision 2, nothing indicates that any parts have been changed. This is what manufacturers routinely do, and a big manufacturer is well respected as Samsung is even making changes behind the scenes that they're not informing the consumers about. Now, since a couple of these drives that I have here are older, it makes sense that if there are two different controllers, I have both. Even the three new ones that I opened, one of the three is physically older. That may mean I did not buy all three at the same time. One might have sat on my shelf unused, then they went on sale, I bought two more. All the boxes are exactly the same. They contain the same make, model, capacity. Everything is the same, but hidden underneath that sticker, we have a different controller. So why do manufacturers do this? Couple of reasons. One, they might have found a cheaper supply of a controller that enables them to make more money without affecting the drive in any way. Two, the newer controller may be more reliable. It may run cooler. Or there could be an inventory issue where they ran out. The Phoenix controller said, we don't have enough. And Samsung said, we can't stop the factory. Oh, everybody go home today. We don't need you today because our parts supplier ran out of parts. No, you don't shut that production line down. You go find a replacement part. You keep that production line open. People want to buy your stuff. They can't buy your stuff if you don't have it made. So here we are. One of the downsides, and this is another important lesson that I really didn't think about, is there's no way for me to update the firmware of these NVMe drives not that I'm aware of, while they're in the NAS. So what that means is I have to take each drive out one by one, plug it into just a regular motherboard with Windows, with the Samsung Magician software, and it will verify if there's any firmware update. If so, apply it, and then I can take it back out and put it back in. And that's all well and good until this gets dropped off to the customer. If at some point the customer has an issue that's resolved with a firmware update, that is not going to be a fun fix. But this is true of any NVMe SSD NAS. Whether it's TerraMaster or QNAP or ASUS store, it may be possible that Synology's NVMe drives can update the firmware through the Synology DSM software. In fact, it would be profoundly mind-boggling if it didn't, because how else would you do it? And that may be an incentive that people hadn't considered, at least not that I've seen on YouTube, of another advantage of buying the Synology branded drives. They'll automatically update the firmware right in the device. Well, what are the odds that that firmware needs to be updated on a drive you have? I don't know. I have no idea, but I know I've seen plenty of firmware updates on these Samsung drives. I know I've never seen a firmware update on an Orico or a Beijing drive. I wouldn't even know how to apply one or even look for it. So is ignorance bliss? They just don't need the updates? Or is it just, it's a cheaper drive, they just don't support it in that way, and if it breaks, you just replace it? Which, quite frankly, it would be faster for a customer who said, hey, we're having a problem. I researched that problem, find out it's a firmware issue. It's often faster for me to just replace that drive than to go through the process of updating the firmware. But I thought, let's do that today. Let's take each drive out. Let's set up that motherboard. Remember, we set up that motherboard to try and test that Windows Update hoax? Well, I still have the board sitting here, and just in time, what I can do is go ahead and leave the NVMe drive that's in that motherboard so we can boot into Windows, and then we'll install the Samsung Magician. And in the secondary M.2, I think it has 2 extra M.2s on here. We could do 2 at a time, really, but we'll do 1 at a time just because I like to do one thing at a time. And that's what we're going to do now. And we're going to verify, is 2B2 the latest version of firmware, or is 4B2 the latest version of firmware? Or is it the way the Google response said that if you have the Phoenix controller, the 2B2 firmware is the latest, but if you have the Elpis controller, then 4B2. I don't know. Other sites say 4B2 is the latest, and they don't make that different. They don't point out the different controllers. So there's one way to know for sure. That's to experience it for ourselves and verify the reality that we actually have hands-on experience with, versus listening to people gossiping online who, unfortunately, there's a lot of trolls. And the trolls, boy, do they love messing with people. They love it. And when you play into it, you're just encouraging it. Think of the show Punk'd, or think of the show Candid Camera, or think of the show, there's been Jerky Boys, there's been so many forms of entertainment where the goal is to humiliate the other person. And we watch that and we laugh, but the poor person that's the victim of this prank is completely humiliated. Seems like bullying. That's what trolls are doing. And I strongly recommend, before you believe anything that people are saying online, if it matters to you enough, do some research from trusted sources. Either that or just dismiss it. It's all conjecture and gossip. It's high school behavior. So in business, in the business world, we just can't afford that luxury of, we might gossip about the office drama and the water cooler talk, but not about the tech, not about things that involve the company being able to maintain operations of helping their customers and keeping their employees working and efficient and getting work done. And the minute any employee is found to sabotage that work, even if their intent was to be helpful, if it does sabotage the company, that employee likely isn't going to be there very long. They're already paying you to be there. They're not paying you to get in the way of them conducting business. You're supposed to be helping them conduct business. and conjecture and gossip about, let's not put this Windows update on because it might break an SSD, may result in all the computers getting infected because of what the Windows update fixed, when the whole Windows updating causing SSDs to fix was never real. It was never real. Or at least, at the very least, what we know for a fact after 6 weeks, no major company anywhere in the world has reported being affected by this. Apparently, it only affects home users. That tells me a lot more about the home users that are supposedly affected than it does about any reality of there being a real problem. You know, they might have monsters living under their bed and they might still believe in Santa Claus, but they seem to really enjoy it, and they will argue and defend it despite not being able to prove it. Something bad happened after a Windows update, therefore the Windows update caused it. So after I updated Windows, I stubbed my toe. Damn Microsoft. The internet is filled with people who do this. Now, I don't know if they're just that dense or if they're just trying to mess with you. And then other people will see them messing with you and they'll say, yeah, me too, just because they want to get in on the fun. And it's your job, if you don't want to be humiliated, to identify when they're being sincere and when they're being insincere. And it's very difficult to tell when it's gossip. But when it's true, it's very easy, very, very easy to prove it, to find trusted sources. So whether it's something I tell you or anybody else that you trust, if it really matters to you, you should look for another source that you trust, preferably a manufacturer. So if we're talking about Windows, there should be an official statement from Windows. If we're talking about certain solid state drive, there should be a statement from that manufacturer confirming or denying. And the funny thing is people say, well, of course the companies are going to deny it. They always deny it. Back in 2003, companies were denying they had the leaking capacitor plague. And I was the first journalist to bring public awareness that these companies were lying. Fast forward to 2025, now the companies are not lying, it's the end users that are lying. So I'm not taking any sides. I just want to know what the truth is. I don't care if it's the company, I don't care if it's the end user, but the end users are lying. No end user can reproduce that problem on camera. Can't happen. Jay's 2 cents showed an NVMe drive overheating. And he even uninstalled the update when it happened. So people walk away going, well, he showed that. No, he didn't. You weren't paying attention. He certainly believed that he recreated it, but he didn't show us the temperature of the drive, the firmware of the drive, the age of the drive. We don't know anything because that's not how you do testing. He was looking for a crash. He was looking for it. He found a crash, and he immediately associated that to the update with no further proof. So again, I stubbed my toe after another Windows update. It's got to be those Windows updates that are causing me to keep stubbing my toe. All right. So I want to get to the nitty-gritty of this, and the best way I know how isn't to listen to somebody tell me. Show me. Put it on video. Show me. If you can't put it on video, then you're a troll, right? If you're sitting there insisting something is true and you can't show me a video that actually demonstrates it, you are a troll, and I'm going to identify you as one. And yet people, boy, do they get really offended that you're suggesting they're a liar. Prove me wrong. And then what do? They just keep talking. Yeah, that's not how you... Oh, I just spit. The point is, the problem is the talking. Stop the talking and start the showing. Walk the walk. Anybody can talk. So if you're that sincere and you're that passionate that you believe it to be true, then you should have no problem showing the world, because nobody's been able to do it. Something for you guys to keep in mind. There's a lot of misinformation, and give it a few weeks. You know, it'd be interesting is if Gamers Nexus, or one of the big channels that has a lot of viewers, if they did a deep dive into this. It's interesting that they haven't. And that's not to say that there isn't a problem with Windows Update, but it's not the problem they're describing. What Jay's 2 cents did was not the problem described. So he saw similar symptoms, but they were unrelated to the Windows Update, at least without showing us the temperature of the drive and more information about the drive, the firmware version, we don't know that he didn't have it installed incorrectly or had a bad drive. So, and he did uninstall the update prior to when that happened, by the way. He uninstalled, or he did it twice, I think. He did it without the update, and it still happened. And yet, still falsely concluded and assumed it was the update. And irresponsible, just poisoned the minds of all of his viewers who trusted him. So I'm just saddened by that. I hope that he comes back and makes that right. In the meantime, nobody else has so much has been able to demonstrate this, and no company anywhere in the entire world has reported this as an issue. So it's just the home users. There's a conspiracy theory. Only the home users. All right, anyway, I want you to think about it. I want you to come to your own conclusion. I don't want you to listen to my conclusion. I want it to make sense to you. Because it doesn't make sense otherwise, not to me. All right, let's get back over to this unit here, and I guess we'll start by shutting it down. So let me jump over to my window capture again. Now our temps, the fan is whisper quiet right now. I'm not hearing any noise, so I'm assuming all of our temps are going to be really good right now. We'll come back over here. Well, that's a little warm, 53. But you know what? This is pretty much where it was, but notice how much cooler. This one is 43, and this one's at 44. And these were the two with the 4B2 firmware. These are the LPIS controllers. And then if we go up to these top three that are about 10 degrees hotter, 9 or 10 degrees hotter, these are all the Phoenix controllers. And that's what I stumbled on. That's what I was so excited to share with you, because I thought, you know, maybe with other manufacturers this was a thing, but I didn't expect that from Samsung. But yeah, Samsung's doing it too. There you go. No announcement, just quietly changing parts. Don't tell anybody, and don't put anything on the box that you can tell when you buy it which one you're buying. That to me should be consumer fraud, but you know, what can you do? Let's shut this down. And while this is shutting down, I'm going to come over here, back over to camera one, and we'll get that motherboard set back up with a power supply. And let me just clear a little space. I'll move this stuff over here, get it out of our way. I need this to shut down so I can unplug it. I'll put the motherboard right here, but while I'm waiting, I'll go grab the power supply. I've got the motherboard just right over here, ready to be grabbed. But the power supply, I moved to the other side of the studio for some reason, because I like to put stuff back where it belongs, even though I didn't know I wasn't done with it yet. All right, what can you do? At least I know where it is. So, got our power supply here. And I'll set that down. I'm also going to need a power switch to turn the motherboard on. I'll need a small screwdriver for putting the NVMe drives in, I think. I don't think that motherboard has quick disconnects on it, but we'll find out. Either way, no problem. Power switch. This should shut off here in just a moment. Probably see the lights blinking. Just turned off. Perfect timing. It's only two cables plugged into that, Ethernet and power. That's it. So before we do any work, we'll make sure its power is drained. I'm going to set this up here just so I have this space for the motherboard. And then we'll get that board booted up and throw Samsung Magician on it. Even though we don't have a Samsung drive on it, it's not a prerequisite. You can install the Samsung Magician software on any computer. You do not need to have a Samsung drive. I'm not sure what benefit it'll do you. It's a free download. Anybody can use it. Let's see. Power connector. I don't know how these cables get so tangled up. And CPU power. That plugged in. let's see, I need Ethernet, keyboard and mouse. Oh, power switch. Probably going to need to get my glasses to see that. Power switch goes towards me over here. Just like that. Don't ask me how I did that. Got the cables all twisted into each other. It's like it's special talent I have. All right, let's grab the keyboard and mouse. Let's plug that in. Turn them on. Plug in the dongle. Grab the Ethernet cable. Because we need to get the firmware somehow, right? If we even need one, I don't know. Let's see, that's in there. Oh, I need HDMI outputs, don't I? HDMI output is probably something I'm standing on. Yep, that's exactly. I think we're good. Oh, these do appear to be some quick disconnects, I think. How do these work? Usually these just pull straight up, don't they? Gigabyte's got a different kind of NVMe connector here, but certainly looks like you would pull straight up on it. It doesn't seem to be working. These things, oh yeah, wow, that is a much longer pin. If I can show that to you. Look how long that pin is. I wasn't expecting it to be pretty long. Anyway, that's fine. I just need one. And let's boot this up as it is. I need power here. So one more cable. And I'm standing on. Plug in the power, flip the switch to on the power supply. Then we'll come over here to our power switch. Turn that on. Unit is booting, so let's go to our HDMI output here on our capture card. Here we go. Okay, we'll jump over to, I gotta go full screen over here. And we will visit Samsung's website. Samsung.com/Samsung SSD. Tools and software. Samsung Magician for Windows, version 8.3.2, download. And install. So again, we do not have a Samsung drive on here. So I'll show you that you don't have to have a Samsung drive to install the Magician software. Again, I don't know why you'd want to, but I'm just telling you, you can. Are you a resident of, no, I'm not. Next, agree, next, accept, next, install. Done with that browser, Close it out. This wallpaper is going to drive me crazy. I'm going to go to personalize themes. Change it back to an original basic theme here so I can see better. This program does take a minute to install, so we'll patiently wait, and we'll start the software now that it's done. It'll give us a little information about the drives we do have, regardless if they're Samsung or not. Still going to provide us with some information. As I mentioned with our capture card and the video output, we are seeing some like glittery kind of look here, but that's just a translation between the output of this motherboard and the input of our capture card. Don't let that worry you. So of course it sees our 2 terabyte T500 Crucial drive here, and it can't really do much with it, but you know, we can read details and such about it. Okay. So what I need to do at this point, so I'm going to go ahead and shut this off. We need to turn this completely off. I'm going to come back over here to camera 1, and then we'll wait for this to shut down, and I'm going to cut power to the power supply. Although with NVMe drives, you're probably okay not to, but I'd rather not say probably. I'd rather know for a fact this isn't going to potentially be any issue. Now we're going to start with, let's start with drive 1 and we'll just work our way across. So what I love about this, obviously, is how easy this is to remove. I think it's a great design. We're going to pop that in. And then we just put the little pin down, I guess. Still got to figure out how these, if this has to align a certain way. So I'm almost afraid to push it all the way in because it locks and I'm not sure how to unlock it. That should be good enough. We're not leaving it in there permanently. So I'll turn the power supply back on. We're going to turn the computer back on. Now it should automatically boot to this drive. It won't alter anything on this drive. So it, you know, let's say we were doing this with a live RAID array with data on it. This is a relatively safe thing to do, but you should always have backups, even when you're not expecting, especially when you're not expecting there to be problems. Just because it's Saturday is a good reason to make backups. That's why you should do it. Could be problems on Sunday. All right, let's go back over to the desktop here. We should have booted, and we did. And then what I'll do is go to the Samsung Magician software, which may take a minute before you see it. After booting, it's sort of delayed the launch start. Yeah, there it is. It just came up. Now it sees a Samsung 970 EVO Plus. If we go to the drive details, we can see the firmware, the 2B2. It doesn't tell us what controller we have. I don't know how you're supposed to know that. And then maybe under the drive hardware details, but regardless, if we go to update and check for updates, firmware, you have the latest version of firmware with 2B2. But yet we have other Samsung 970 EVO Pluses that are 2 terabytes that have 4B2. So how is this the latest firmware? And that's what I was curious about. So it does appear that the Google search results were correct and that the Copilot results were wrong, because Copilot implied the latest version is 4B2, which isn't lying, but it's not giving you the conditions under which that's not true, which is the difference in the controller. So we have no firmware update. You are currently using the latest version of firmware. Good to know. Okay, I'm going to shut this back down. Now we're going to repeat this with the other 4 drives. You can understand this is a pain in the butt if your job is to support a company that you're utilizing one of these NVMe NASs and you're trying to diagnose a problem, or all 4 drives. Presumably you use the same drives, and if one needs an update, likely so do the other 4. So you better plan your schedule accordingly to take care of it for your client. Put this back in. I love how easy this goes in and out. I think it's great. Let's try drive 2. So the other alternative I have is to buy 5 brand new NVMe drives that have heat sinks already on them that are low enough profile they'll fit in there, which I'm sure that the AddLink drive would do. But the AddLink drives are $225 a piece for 2 terabyte drives. Those are the 4 terabytes. $225 for the 4 terabyte drive with the heatsink, which is a good price, by the way. Didn't know if I priced the 2 terabyte drives. But if we put 5 4 terabyte drives in there, that'll cost us, well, about $450 for each pair. So $450 plus $450 plus $2.25 plus sales tax. We're up around $1,250 on top of the $1,500 we paid for the NAS, on top of the price of these heat sinks that we paid for $25, plus the additional $7, although we have heat sinks left over. Then I'm probably blocking my cooler airflow by putting this on top of the case, but I'm just doing that temporarily. Let's come back over here. See if we get some video out of this bad boy. Why am I not getting video out of here? So what I would do in a case like this, shut it off. I'm wondering if maybe I just don't have this seated down enough and it's not making a good enough connection. That should be good enough. Keyword should. Let's try it again. Are we getting stuck on the RAM error? You see I put the other RAM module in and I'm watching these diagnostic LEDs. This is a really bizarre problem that's unrelated, but if you recall, yesterday we had the exact same problem after the show. I went to try out the system by putting the RAM back in it. It worked again, and it's been working, and now it's stopped. And then I take this one RAM module out right here, and then it works. So something's either incompatible or starting to fail. Those intermittent problems are the most fun to diagnose. So I'm looking at the LEDs moving, and it just stops moving. So if I watch this for a minute, I should see it move. There it goes. It finally moved. That's where it was getting hung up before. The diagnostic LEDs are helpful when they're helpful, and they're not helpful when they're not helpful. I know that sounds obvious, but they're not always accurate with what they're reporting. But sometimes they are. And that's why when I recommend checking the easy things first, if the LED says CPU or RAM or something, try that first. But it's not 100% reliable. All right, so we're back at the desktop. And then let's go to Samsung Magician once that loads down here. Now, in a typical sort of warranty repair situation, I won't play with why this RAM isn't working. It's faster to replace it, send it back in for warranty, or at the price of RAM, throw it away and buy new sticks of RAM, really. It just depends on what the RAM is and how old it is. But it's not worth taking the diagnostic any further than that. We have other things to do. Customer needs a resolution quick. Again, we've got 2B2 firmware on this Samsung drive. We can select the Corsair drive over here for Crucial. Forget which one it is. Anyway, back over to update. Firmware update says 2B2, you are currently running the latest version of firmware. Okay. So this is kind of what I was expecting, but I never did check the 3 NVMe drives that I took out of the box brand new when we set this up a couple days ago. Didn't even think about it. So let's shut it back off. And we'll come back over here. So the drives may be up to date, but how do I know? How do I know for sure, especially when there's two different controllers? Is it possible that that 4B2 works with either controller? How do I know? Now I know. My goal is, this customer wants this done right first time, and that's my own personal goal every time. And if it means the customer's got to wait a day or two until I can be absolutely certain that I have, I believe I have thought of everything, I have tested and rechecked everything, I will deliver no wine until it's time. And if you're too lazy to do the work, you should not be charging people for your work. People are paying you to do the job. If you don't want to do the job or you want to half-ass the job, do us all a favor, go find another job. That's the way I feel about it. People paying the good hard-earned money for your services. And if you want to make assumptions, oh, they're probably up to date. Yeah, you might be right. But that's more gossip and conjecture until you verify it yourself. At least that's the way I see the world. It's very easy to prove things. And if you can't prove them, they don't exist. You can't prove Santa Claus to me? All right, let's get back over to our desktop. Mike Quinton said if you are building that on-off motherboard switch is great. Oh, Amazon sells a boatload of these, all different shapes and sizes and designs. Just type motherboard switch and hit your Amazon search. That's why I use it. I love it. Okay, we're on drive 3 now. This would have been one of the drives we took out of the box. Let's go to Samsung Magician again. Normally there'll be a blue dot right here that says update. Latest version is 2B2. Now the last two are 4B2, which according to Google is the latest, but Google has been wrong before. So we're going to shut this down. And once again, back over to camera 1. Wait for this to power up. It doesn't take very long to do all 5 of these. Really. How lazy do you have to be that you can't be bothered and yet call yourself a tech and rest assure your customer with your words it'll be fine? See how long that's sustainable in your business. Believe me, if that worked, I'd be doing it. It doesn't work consistently. So I need to be 100% certain that if this customer does have a problem, it won't be due to any of this. It'll be a completely different problem that I never saw coming. That's why we make backups, not just because I'm getting a Windows update. We make backups because, just like a car accident, you did not know when you got in that car that you were going to get in an accident. So whenever you drive your car, you have insurance. Well, backup is the car insurance version of data for your computer. I saw somebody leave a comment that goes, I've got 8 terabytes of data. You got to be insane to think I'm going to back that up. It's like a doctor gives you medicine and you go, I'm not going to take that medicine. You've got to be crazy. I've got way too much cancer to take medication. People on the internet, man. Some people on the internet are quite special people. Just feeling if there's a lock on there. All right, put that in. Let's turn this on. Fire it up. Okay, so we're on drive 4 of 5. It's a relatively quick process, not a big deal. But understand that if there's an update to these in the future, I would have to go over to the clients on a weekend when they're closed and shut everything down and bring a machine with me likely, or open up one of their machines that I built for them that hopefully has a second NVMe slot I can use so I can continue to boot into Windows. And again, I can load the Samsung Magician software if they don't already have it. And then when I'm done, just uninstall it if they don't need it. So it's really not that big of a deal. And also bring along a small computer of my own, like a mini PC would do the job. Many of them have dual M.2 slots these days. But it's very different doing that for a client than it is for yourself sitting at home. There's a massive difference there. All right, version firmware update. 4B2, you're currently using the latest. Excellent. You know, given that those were sitting in a box for God knows how long, I'm surprised there has not been a firmware update since cracking the seal on the box. That's been sitting on a shelf at least over a year anyway. So that's interesting. Firmware updates used to come out a lot more frequently with Samsung drives, so maybe they got it all figured out now and they don't need to come out with them with the same frequency. And maybe what would be ideal, based on the temperatures I'm seeing from these LPIS controllers, would be to buy 3 more Samsung drives. But there's still a chance I get the old Phoenix controller. There's no way to know that I'm not buying old inventory if I were to order it from Amazon. I could always return it. I could even buy some used drives. I'm sure they have some of these used from Amazon warehouse. But I think the odds of the used drives being the older Phoenix controllers, you know, it's probably older inventory would be my guess. But I mean, I could explore that if I wanted to. Okay, now the 5th drive, which is going to scrape a little bit coming out. It's in there pretty tight. And then we'll pop that bad boy out of here. And I'm sure it's going to tell us exactly the same thing, but I want to see it. I don't want to assume it. We know this has 4B2 on there. And in theory, this shouldn't be necessary, but this is called double checking. In the world of writing technical stuff, or anything technical, documentation, blueprints, you need somebody else to look at it. You often cannot see your own mistakes. The closest I can come to seeing my own mistakes is trying 2 different ways to look at it instead of 2 different people to look at it. So having it looked at in this machine and then having it looked at in a Windows machine, I want to see consistency. If I see a lack of consistency, I can narrow down very quickly where to focus my attention and time into discerning a solution to a problem. Otherwise, it's, you know, we continue on trying to figure it out. So I'm going to come back over here to the desktop. Hello, Mara.
Hello.
Are you telling me I've got email?
Maybe.
Maybe.
Are you psychic?
I'm not sick. Are you sidekick? Are you a sidekick?
Or are you just psycho?
I'm a sidekick.
Check your email.
Thank you. Updates. 4B2. Yeah, we're all good. So that's not an issue, but it does explain the difference in the firmware versions. When I look on the QNAP, I did not expect to see that. I kind of stumbled into that last night. And I said, well, there's a 10-degree difference on 2 of these drives. And those 2 drives just happen to be different firmware. So these other 3 must need that firmware. That must be what it does. Then in the Google search said, well, it depends which controller you've got. And I'm like, what do you mean what controller I've got? Didn't Samsung make their own controllers? Maybe those are Samsung controllers. I mean, I don't know who makes a Phoenix controller, or I'm assuming that's the name of the maker, but it could be the name of the model. Because I thought Samsung made all their own stuff. Anyway, you could say, well, all that was for nothing, but I would argue it wasn't for nothing, because what we thought we knew, we now confirmed we know. And I would rather confirm the facts than assume the facts. And believe me, if you ever show up in a courtroom for any reason as a defendant or a plaintiff, nobody cares about what you think. They only care about the facts. Evidence. Suddenly then it'll matter, right? Okay, so let's check. Just put my glasses away. Let's check the emails. Our friend Charlie Purdy sends an Amazon gift card. Very generous one. He says, get some Gatorade and steak sauce. Mara loves that. G. Hughes, sugar-free steak sauce. See you in the chat room soon. Right on. Well, thank you very much, Charlie. You're a very generous individual. We appreciate you, my friend. And of course, our shout out to our friend Buster, who prior to the show sent an Amazon gift card instead of a super chat. So we appreciate that. And all of our members, we can't say thank you enough for helping keep us supported here so we can continue to show all these different various projects, such as we've got 3 more laptops from our friends at Nemo that make these laptops that are super easy to work on. They're very inexpensive. They've got 2-year warranty and 90-day returns. They're assembled here in the United States. How can they do all that and be cheaper than the East Asian manufacturers? I don't know how that's possible. Our friends over at Minisforum recently sent us a brand new M1 Pro, which is the top of the line mini PC, just released. And I can't wait to get my hands on that. Maybe tomorrow. We also have the firmware update to do on video cards that Emerald Computer bought that were flashed in the BIOSes for optimizing efficiency and cryptocurrency mining. I thought we'd play with that, see if we can't figure it out. That one, very well out of my wheelhouse, but we'll play. We have a few laptops also from Emerald Computers just to play with, just to kind of poke around, see if we can resuscitate anything or if it's too little too late. And then I still have 2 other desktops from Emerald Computers that I want to just kind of look at. Are they old? Are they worth fixing? What are they? So all of that and more coming up this week. I also did a little more research on the Nano KVM Pro. I was very anxious to get an out-of-box experience with that. And the documentation is online. It comes with no documentation. There's a couple things that I got wrong, which I'll need to follow up. But one of the things I got wrong, they don't clarify. There's a button on the end of it that I thought said USB. And the documentation says that button is USR. User? It doesn't talk anymore about it. I still don't know what it's for, but I called it USB, thinking it had something to do with the USB port. It doesn't. So maybe next week. I'm also hoping for some more updates. They also say in their documentation it needs to be plugged into the wall, that getting power strictly from the USB port is not enough, since not all USB ports deliver the same amount of power. Although we didn't have any problems power-wise that I'm aware of. It strikes me as it's off-putting to tell me that the power input needs to come from like a cell phone charger. It cannot come from the computer. It's what they're saying in their documentation. So remember, I was complaining about running an additional power cable to the back of the computer, but I'm going to complain even louder if I got to run an additional power cable in another direction to the wall. But that's what their documentation says. So it requires more testing, because it may be, if we had this thing fully loaded, if we had the Nano KVM with PoE options enabled and Wi-Fi, that's obviously going to consume more power if it's Wi-Fi. PoE should deliver the power it needs regardless, and that should negate any need to plug it in, unless you don't have a PoE switch, in which case you'd have to buy a PoE injector, and the PoE injector would need to plug into the wall. So that's messy. So it's great if you already have power over Ethernet or PoE. That's often what's used on phones that connect to the internet, VoIP phones. Usually you get an Ethernet cable, comes out of the wall, and it's got voltage on it. And that voltage powers that phone, like at an office, where the phone has a little screen and lights. It's getting the voltage from the Ethernet cable. And then often those phones have another loop out that goes to the back of the computer, because whoever's sitting at a desk probably has a computer and a phone. Some places wire 2 jacks or 2 RJ45 keystone jacks into the wall, and they label one as phone, one as computer, and then you run two separate cables. But these days you can do it all with one and loop it. Anyway, all of that content and more coming up this week, next week, the week after, however long it takes, plus whatever else we get in the meantime, we'll stack on. And thank you to all the members for helping fuel this channel and keep it moving forward, because I love doing this and I love having you here. And I love not having to shout out a sponsor or to read a script or run a pre-roll ad. Peter VZ renews membership, now a member for 27 months. Right on. Thank you, Peter. Thanks for renewing. Andy says, just the facts. The Force Gaming asking a question we addressed earlier. So yeah, if you want to rewind these live videos to see what you've missed, if you're just joining us, you should be able to drag that mouse backwards and catch up. Martin says, hard drives also have the same problem with updating drive firmware. I haven't had to update a hard drive firmware in about 15 or 20 years, probably 20 years. It's almost never done. Remember, I work as a service technician. I've been in this business professionally and started in 1991. And when I started, we were doing SCSI drives. We were still servicing older computers in 91. Customers would sometimes bring in computers that had RLL and MFM drives. And then, of course, IDE was the standard for a long time. And in my entire career, flashing a firmware on a hard drive, maybe did it twice. So when you ask me about flashing firmware on a solid state drive or a motherboard BIOS, thousands of times. It's probably thousands. So I don't worry. I don't even think about hard drive firmware. It's just not a thing. It hasn't been a thing for a long time. Now, if you can recall the last time you upgraded a firmware on a hard drive, what was the make and model of that hard drive? Just because I'm curious. And why were you updating the firmware? What problem did it solve? Because I'm not aware of anything in the last decade. But maybe you know something I don't. That's not uncommon. Nigel said using HW info should show the controller. Good to know. We could try that. Except I can't run HW info on this, right? I'd have to run it over here. I think we're good. I think it's pretty clear based on the firmware version which controller's which. So I don't think I need any further verification. Thankfully, because of, Google's AI results. Can't say that very often, but sometimes it's dead on, and there you go. Lawn Dog said, I don't know if it's above my pay grade. I have a Samsung 980 Pro, use it in a USB adapter. Found out one day I needed an update to the firmware about 2 years ago. Anyway, the fix was to do a firmware update. The only way it works for mounting it in the machine and using the Samsung software. So the reason for that is because the external enclosures have a controller. They have a USB controller. So when you put an NVMe drive or even a SATA drive into an enclosure, you're seeing the USB controller of the enclosure. You're not seeing
drive controller of the drive. The only way you can see the drive controller of the drive would be to plug it into the slot on the motherboard. Otherwise, you cannot just plug a drive into USB. Something has to translate that unless the drive was sold as a USB drive. So if you bought a SanDisk, you know, one of those self-enclosed, packaged up, you can't open it kind of deals, then that's designed to update firmware because it's designed for that specific drive. But you cannot just go and buy any of 100,000 different enclosures and any of 100,000 different drives, put them together, and think that you're going to be able to communicate with that drive directly. You cannot in most cases. The controller, the USB controller that's converting that non-USB drive into a USB drive is what you're looking at from the operating system's perspective. It's seeing a USB controller. Then the USB controller is the translator from the drive you plugged into it. So if that's important to you for future reference, then you want to buy drives that are pre-built enclosed. If you do it yourself, then you will encounter this. That's expected and standard operating procedure. It should be common knowledge. If you think about it like logically, how can a drive that's designed for one interface communicate through a completely different interface? Well, that's what the enclosure does. It's not just holding the drive. It's got electronics in it that make that conversion so that you can communicate with that drive through a means for which it was never designed. As a result, any sort of critical command lines, you know, to communicate directly with the drive likely won't work because of the translation between them. It doesn't know how to translate that unless it's made by the same manufacturer, and even then, it would probably have to be pre-built. All right, I hope that clears up any confusion. All right, any other questions I can answer for you guys? This will be the time to ask. Otherwise, I think we're pretty much done for the day. I'm on the fence about this. What I'm seeing after having it run for a couple hours last night while doing a file copy is the drives are pretty much solid where they are. What we're seeing, even with the drive temperature difference, I can at least explain it that it's a controller. And the older controller just runs hotter. That much I'm certain of. But it's not running too hot. I could not get it to run too hot. When I put it up here today on the bench and just turned it on and it wasn't really doing anything, it got hot for some reason. I don't know why. But then once it cooled off, it stayed cool. That would be considered normal operating procedure. And while I cannot explain why those drives got hot, they are designed to get warm when they're put under a stress, when they're put under a workload. And I put the biggest workload I could as far as file transfer. The only other way that I could put a big workload on the machine would be to run some application, virtual machine, something like that, Docker. But we're not doing any of that. There's no point in me testing it because the whole time my CPU usage during a file copy is like 1 or 2% on this guy. It's nothing. I'm monitoring the resource monitor and it's just low. And the whole time the drives ran between 45 and 55 Celsius, which is perfectly fine. I think it's good to go. Could it be better? Yes, I could replace the first 3 drives with making sure I get the LPIS controllers. But that's more of a psychological problem. It doesn't necessarily impact reliability. As far as I can tell right now from the data I've collected, this is operating the way it's supposed to. And yeah, the drives sometimes get hot, but then it cools off and they stay cool. They don't keep getting, like I said, I couldn't force them to go back up. I don't know why they went up in that particular instance, but then when they came back down, they stayed down. And then, you know, I can let it run overnight and see if there's any alerts or notifications, because if those drives run hot just randomly overnight and it's just for 2 minutes, what do I care? If it's happening every 10 minutes for 2 minutes, that's a problem. But if it takes 6 hours to get 2 minutes and then they cool back down, that's normal operating procedure. Regardless of why it's happening, I don't care. Like it's irrelevant. Something's happening, obviously, that it's responding to, and I don't know what it is, but it's not lasting long enough to cause a problem. That's why it has fans, and that's why it has temperature sensors. What's the point of having them if you're not going to need them, right? Sort of like being a millionaire, but you refuse to spend any money. Well, that's the same as being broke. So when I'm solving problems, I need to understand what our goal is. What are we trying to achieve? And if we're only trying to achieve resolving our own personal curiosity, that's a home user mentality. We don't have time for that in business. I cannot stress this enough. Customers are waiting. And when you're done with that customer, the next customer is waiting. And if your customers wait too long, they will take their business somewhere else. So as long as everything's working, and it doesn't matter if you can answer, all these detailed questions, I'm not a forensic scientist. It's not what I do. That's a very expensive and time-consuming process. I am not a coroner. That takes a long time to figure out, why did this person die? In many cases, it could take days to figure it out, waiting for tests, results, and all kinds of things. Sometimes it's obvious, the fact that the person's missing a head probably has something to do with it. But in some cases, you have no idea, and you have to invest a lot of time into it. And there's a good reason to know if there's foul play, if there's a crime being committed. But this, no. I mean, what's the worst that's going to happen? If I can't make this overheat to a point that it's an issue, I don't think my customer can either. But at the end of the day, I'll be held accountable for that decision. But I don't think it's worth putting 3 new drives in there that have hopefully have the newer controller, just so we drop it, 10 more, 9 more degrees at idle when the idle temp either way is within spec. It's running the way it's supposed to. Those controllers run the way they were designed, and these controllers run the way they were designed. I had no idea they had different controllers. That explains it. That's good enough for me. We're good to go. Nothing's wrong. There's nothing to fix. All right, that's what I needed to conclude, right? They're doing my research and figure out what the hell is going on. I don't need to go any deeper than that. It's pointless. Wild Soul says, thanks for the stream. Well, thanks for hanging out with us. I'm just looking through the chat. If I've missed your question, please do ask it again now so I have a chance to respond. In the meantime, I'm just kind of looking through. Looking through what limited comments I can see. YouTube doesn't keep them all the way back to the beginning unless the video's over and it's been processed, right? At this point, it's just buffering whatever it holds. It just can't hold an indefinite amount of chat. Well, we're live. So the Force Gaming Network keeps asking the same question, and I keep telling them we already answered it. So why am I going to answer the question that I've already answered if you didn't listen to me the first time and you didn't listen to me the second time? That is very frustrating. He's probably not listening now. So I'm going to skip over that. We already addressed the Windows Update and SSDs earlier in today's video, so please go back and watch. It's the second time I've told you that. Peter, thank you for the €1 super chat. John Paul Bacon says it's another great stream. Thank you, John Paul Bacon. Any other questions I can address. Luke Greenia says he's got an update on the Asus BT10 Zen Wi-Fi router, the mesh router. We asked him to evaluate it for us. His latest update is it's rock solid, no issues. Thank you for the update. You know, sometimes, I assume no news is good news, but it's nice to confirm it. So appreciate the update. I do want to take a look at the this little catch here. How was that supposed to lock in? So the whole thing spins. There doesn't appear to be any catch on it at all. Best I can tell, and this is a terrible NVMe design. It clicks. So how do you unclick it without pulling, too hard? What do you? It's terrible. Requires an awful lot of strength. And again, the more I do it, the easier it's getting. That means the more you switch NVMe drives in and out. This doesn't secure as tightly as it did when it was new. A screw would fix that. The little levers, like what these drives have, they never get loose. I don't understand what Gigabyte was thinking. I don't care. This is a test bench. We'll probably leave it as a test bench. We've already had 2 reasons to use it. So likely there'll be some reasons in the future that I don't know yet. And this is just, I don't like the fact that for the price of this board, they leave 2 drives exposed without a heatsink, which makes it ideal for a test bench. But in the meantime, I'll start disassembly here. Typically all this stuff I do once we end the show and we're not live anymore. I get a good half hour or so of just powering things down, putting batteries on chargers, turning the cameras off, putting the lens covers on, clearing the bench. And then typically what my day looks like is I'll spend the first couple hours of my day catching up with emails and messages, maybe returning some phone calls if they're quick. Then I get ready to do the show. The show will last about 3 hours. Lately it's been 3 hours. After that, everything gets powered off. I start disassembling, putting things back in boxes, and then take a break, get something to eat, maybe try and cool down. It's hot. Rest up a little bit. If there's any other phone calls during the day or errands I need to run during business hours, I have a couple hours to do that if that's what I have to do. If I have to go grocery shopping or run other errands to places that are open later, I wait for the sun to go down, for rush hour traffic to go down. Then I go out at dusk or after to do those kind of errands. But places like FedEx and the post office, they close much earlier. After that, that is typically dinner time, somewhere around after 7 o'clock. After that, until about 10 p.m., try and relax, maybe get a little TV in or something. After that, I will go back to work. I'll come back down here and I'll start cleaning up what I haven't finished off the bench. I'll start setting up the next thing for the next broadcast if I know what it's going to be, get it ready for the next day. Go back to returning emails, editing videos. There's so much going on. So basically what I'm trying to tell you is it's more or less it's a 10-hour day for me. It starts out with 5 hours in the beginning, and there's a couple hour break in the middle, and there's another 5 hours until about 2 or 3 a.m. Then I can finally go to bed and start the whole thing all over again. So I don't work a straight 9 hours in a row, but it's like after the show today, I've got to drive across town. One of my clients, they need to get upgraded to Windows 11, and TPM is not enabled because I disabled it. I cannot walk them through how to do it. So I have to drive 30 miles. I have keys in the alarm code to get into the office, go into the BIOS of that computer, change the BIOS from TPM disabled to TPM enabled, save and exit. And then I can get in the car and drive all the way 30 miles back home. So I'll do that in the evening when there's light traffic. I do it on the weekend when nobody's at the office anyway. And then I can do the Windows 11 install you know, if I'm there and I have nothing else to do, I'm not in a hurry, I could make sure it completes. Normally it completes fine. I don't recall ever seeing it not complete. Or I could kick it off and start it, and by the time I drive back and get back here, it's waiting for me with the remote software that I can, you know, go back in with Instant House Call at that point and finish the Windows 11 install. So that's not something I'm looking forward to, but how often do I have to do that? They've had these computers now, they're 9th gen computers, so they've had them 6 years. I've never had to go over there just to flip a BIOS setting. So I'll take care of it. That's just part of my job. And then I'll check the others while I'm there just to make sure there's, I thought I already got them all, but this one I left out for some reason. And I can't remember what it was now. But regardless, I got to do that, and then maybe I'll grab something to eat. And then when I get back, it's back to work again until about 3 a.m. Just if you were curious how that works. And that, if you see me not making a video, like on a Wednesday or a Saturday, I try and take a day off, but it's hard for me to have so much work. I have so many things to do. I've got work around the studio coming out the wazoo. It's painful to have things coming out of your wazoo. And I just haven't really had the motivation to get into any of that. But it's all waiting for me until I do. No one else is going to do it. So I keep myself pretty busy. Mark Gaines has an update. Carey, connecting my PC to the Onkyo receiver is solved. It was the HDMI cable switch. He changed his HDMI cable to a high-speed HDMI cable, and that solved the problem. Very good. Thank you for the update. Lawn Dog says, on your way back from that trip, you can stop by the local hot sauce store and pick up some hot sauce that you guys have. I know what you're talking about. But yeah, absolutely. Especially when I have to drive to the other side of town. There's some restaurants we could choose to eat at. We wouldn't normally drive that far to eat, but if we're over there anyway, why not take advantage? Except if we did it today, it's Saturday, and eating at restaurants on Fridays and Saturdays in Phoenix, you know, unless it's fast food, it's probably going to be a wait, half hour to an hour to get in. We'll see. I don't have the patience for that in this stage of life. I got other things to do than wait in line to go give somebody my money. When I was younger, I didn't mind. Today, no, food is food. Wild Soul said, I had asked if there was any reason that I could think of to recommend this QNAP over Synology, but I feel you answered that. Well, there isn't sort of a... Let's take this another way. Is there any reason I can think of to recommend a minivan over a pickup truck, over an SUV, over a convertible sports car? Yes. I have to talk to the person who wants to make the purchase, figure out what their budget is, and what kind of vehicle they're looking for, whatever their needs are. If their needs are to have a two-door sports car, to have something fun and sporty to drive, or if their needs are, I got to take a bunch of people to soccer practice or whatever, we have to consider the needs of the client. So it's impossible for me to just say, this is the one everybody should use without knowing each individual. Because I like to think we're all different. We all have different values, different budgets, and different expectations of the equipment we buy, and why are we buying it? when I wrote, and this is a constant problem that it's a Carey problem. When I have somebody who wants to do something for no reason, I can't wrap my head around it. So somebody says, I'm thinking of upgrading my Synology. Okay, why? Well, because the new one has a faster processor. It does, yeah. So how are you using the NAS? Oh, I share files on it. But sharing files doesn't you really use any processor. This one's only using 1% of 2% of the processor through that whole 4 terabyte file copy. So you want to buy a brand new NAS, move everything off of your old NAS to your new one, and when it's all said and done, nothing's going to work any differently for you. Yeah. Oh. Okay. Why? Because I want it. Oh, I guess that's a reason. It's so unnatural for the way I think. I'm always thinking like, well, what are we solving? What is something slow? Or is something? Well, this is new. Yeah, it's new. But what's wrong with the one you have? Well, the newer one's better. Not the way you use it. It won't make any difference whatsoever. None. You're going to take something you have that's working fine, replace it with something new, go through all the effort to reconfigure it and make it the way you like it, and when you're done, you're right back where you started from. What's the point? And when the customer says the point is because I want it, all further discussion is like, okay, we don't need to discuss this anymore. I'll help them. I'm not going to deny them the help. If that's what they want to do, I'll do whatever I can to help. But as a technician that does repair, I need to see it broken so I know when it's fixed. If we're fixing something that isn't broken and we're just going to recreate another, we're going to replace a part. Like we're going to take a water pump off of a car. You're having a water pump problem? No. Like try this with a mechanic sometime. Why do you want to replace your water pump? Well, there's a new one out. Yeah, they make the new one a little different. It's supposed to be more efficient. Yeah. My understanding is all the new cars come with these new water pumps. So my old car, I want to put the new water pump on it. Okay. Is your old car running hot? No. Does it have a leak? No. Is it giving you any problems at all? Smoke, funny smell? Anything at all? No? You want me to rip the whole front of the car apart, take out a perfectly good water pump, clean all the gasket area, put a brand new water pump in there, put it all back together. You're going to pay that bill, and nothing's going to change. Car temperature isn't going to change. Nothing's going to change. Nothing. Well, that's what I want. Okay. I just wanted to make sure, because in my mind, that doesn't make any sense. But if you're paying the bill, I'll get to work. What I like to do when I work is to be able to verify I fixed it, right? So how do I verify I fixed it? Well, if it was running fine before and we unnecessarily take it apart and upgrade it and put it back together, and it's running exactly the same as it was before we started, I guess I'm done with my job. I guess now I can close the hood and present the bill. That's not normally how I work. Normally people call me because they go, for example, with the car. My car's overheating. My car's leaving puddles in the driveway. You need a new water pump. I take the old pump out, I put the new pump in. Leak isn't there anymore. I can confidently say I'm done. But how do I know if I'm done if all I did is put it back exactly the way it was? I struggle with this, and it's not a problem. Nobody's doing anything wrong, but 98% of the work I do is fixing problems, and 2% is somebody going, could I have this? Could you do this for me? And I'm like, well, what are we trying to do? We're trying to get this new thing. Yeah, no, I got that, but why? Because I want it? Oh, yeah, I mean, that's a reason. Okay. But, it strikes me like, It's so weird to me that I don't know. I guess I was raised too poor to just spend money unnecessarily for things we didn't need that we already had to do the exact same thing, and nothing was wrong with them. That's like, it's a foreign concept for me. I mean, I get it if somebody wants like a two-door sports car. Why do you want that? Well, look at it. Yeah, I'm looking at it. Why do you want it? Because it's cool. I mean, do you need reliable transportation? Something's wrong with the car you've got now? No, I have a lot of extra money and I have no idea what to spend it on. And I thought having an extra car would be fun. And that looks like a fun car. Do you want to sell it to me or not? Okay, no problem. Takes me a minute. I'm like, really? Wish I had those problems. But that does throw me. But they're not doing anything wrong. It's just not typical for my life that somebody wants things just because they want them and they're going to throw money at it. Good for them. But again, it's not my starting point. I don't go, oh, you just want this just because. No, I'm trying to figure out why they want it. I'm struggling. And then finally we get there where they're like, can I just want it? Oh, yeah, that's allowed. It just doesn't occur to me. Oh, yeah, some people have more money and they can just buy things because they want them. I wish I was one of those people. I mean, I bought little inexpensive trinkets that I think are funny, you know, or cool, but nothing that expensive and that time consuming. John Williams says, thanks, Carey and Mara, for the very informative live stream today. You're the best. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. The CyberGeek mini PC is still running great. Nice to hear. Thank you for the update and the kind words. Peter in the Netherlands says, indeed, if you have a problem, then I will fix it. But solving problems for others makes you smart. If it takes a lot of time, I always enjoy doing it. Sometimes it's tiring. Randy joins us in the chat and says hello. Right here as we're about to end the broadcast, he pops in there at the last minute. The Greenie says, I don't feel I say thank you enough, so thank you for all you do. Well, thank you. It's very thoughtful for you, for you to say that. I appreciate that. It's unnecessary, but it's still nice. I think that'll wrap it up. We're just at the 2-hour mark, so that just ties that into a neat bow. And tomorrow, what am I doing tomorrow? I think I really, really want to look at this Minisforum N1. So here's one of those things where I don't have any use for it. I could not justify spending $900 on it because I don't have any use for it. But since Minisforum sent it to us in exchange for a review, hell yeah! Price makes all the difference in the world. This thing looks incredible, and I'm super excited. I hope you are too, because this thing is all the specs on it, and for what you get for the money, is a really, really attractive looking PC that should also be quiet, feature rich, and incredibly powerful. Even the GPU is supposed to be, the internal graphics are supposed to be some of the best Intel has offered yet. Still not as good as AMD's, but much better for Intel so that you can do gaming on it decently, is my understanding. It's taped up in a box. We're going to unbox it, cut the tape. We'll do that live as we always do. And then, like I said, the laptops from Nemo came in. We're still expecting some other stuff coming in soon. I also expect to get the Nano KVM Pro Desktop Edition in about, I think, 2 more weeks maybe. And they're already for sale on Amazon. And I was curious if Amazon would allow me to post my unboxing. In other words, me just taking out all my opinions, just here's what's in the box. I'm not saying it's good or it's bad. Here's what the box looked like. Here's what's inside of it. And on Amazon, if you order it, it won't ship out for like 3 or 4 weeks. According to Amazon, the expected delivery is middle of October. So would Amazon approve my unboxing video for a product they haven't even shipped? They did. So if you look at the Nano KVM Pro page at Amazon, you'll find my unboxing video, which is a very heavily edited version of the live video. And that's one of those things that takes hours and hours for me to do. And I'll do that off camera later at night. That's usually when I do my editing. And anyway, I was tickled they posted it. That's going to wrap it up for me for today. I want to thank everybody for joining me. I hope you have a great Saturday. We'll be back live tomorrow at 1 o'clock. I want to shout out a thank you again to those Amazon gift cards we received during the show, which includes, of course, our friend Buster, and a very generous contribution from Charlie Purdy as well. Dennis is working on a utility for us. Dennis in the chat room is working on a free utility that you can use to fix that Windows 11 network security. It's not fixing it. It's just setting it back to being open again for those of us that want it that way. And he's working on that as we speak. So hopefully we'll have some progress to report on that. And a shout out and a thank you to Dennis for the work he's put in, also for the KVM discovery tool. And now this. Who knows what else he's got up his sleeve. So we really appreciate that coming from a member of our community, and certainly anybody else that's interested in pursuing solving some issues through coding and want to present it and share it with the community. We'd love to take a look at it and encourage you to do that. If that's your thing and you enjoy coding. I've also talked to Nick over at D7X Tech, and I gave him a long list of things I want to put on the Windows 11 optimizer. But I can tell you, there is no way in hell I am going to release that just prior to 25H2 coming out, because that may break some things or it may add some other optimizations. So we're probably a good 4 or 5 months out before we can release a Windows 11 optimizer. It may not be till the first of the year, so don't expect that anytime soon. But Nick has started work on it, and it's a lot of work. And then we'll test it, and then somewhere during this process, 25H2 will come out. And that may change. He may have to undo some things, or he may have to add some code to determine if you have 24H2 or 25, so that if there's a feature in 25 that we want to adjust that does not exist in 24, that would potentially break the tool. So the tool needs to identify that if that exists, which we won't know until 25H2 is released. Therefore, we will not release the updater until it's been thoroughly tested and verify that there's nothing else unique in 25H2 that we might want to add to the optimizer. So for those reasons, we are working on it, and it's going to be a while. Dennis's tool, though, he's pretty close, so we should have something there, and it should be free for anybody who wants it. I do believe Dennis just wants to give it away, if I'm not mistaken. Thanks to Mara, of course, for the work she does on our thumbnails, our video descriptions, and answering your emails. If you want to write to us, you can talk to us privately and directly at our email address right here, showcasecreate@gmail.com. We love hearing from all you guys, so feel free to reach out anytime. And I will follow up with you on the QNAP, but I think at this point it's ready to go. I think during the week, this coming week, I can deploy this at the customer's office. This is a different customer from the one that I've got to go put Windows 11 on, by the way. 2 separate customers. And then I just want to be extra sure. Like I said, this is my one chance for this customer to solve their problem, or they're going to a server. If they go to the server, I can't help them anymore. I don't do that kind of work, and I'm not going to start doing it. And we both understand this is my shot to fix the problem. If it doesn't work, there's nothing else I can do. They'll have to find a solution somewhere else. They will have outgrown me at that point. But I do believe not only will this solve the problem, it'll probably solve it 8 times over. I think it's way overkill. But until we deploy it and test it, and I keep saying this over and over again, we can speculate and gossip all day long. Get off your chair, get on your feet, and make the work happen. Then tell us the results of the work. Don't just sit there conjuring up images of conclusions that are completely baseless until they've been tested, because it just gets really old after a while. It's the laziest, most common thing I see all over YouTube and Reddit, all over the internet. So many people talking such confidence over something they don't have a clue over and cannot prove. Please be aware of this. When you're reading articles or watching videos, reading forums, a lot of people who talk very confidently but are failing to provide evidence, ask for the evidence. And if they cannot provide the evidence themselves, if they have to say, well, this other person said it, you don't need to hear anymore, like as far as I'm concerned. Oh, because somebody else said it. Great. All right. With that, thank you again for watching. Thank you for all your memberships and your support, your kindness. We appreciate you all very, very much. I will hopefully see you all back here tomorrow, 1 o'clock at the usual time, Phoenix time. Until then, bye for now.